Welcome to another GlowShift Gauges installation video. When you're ready, grab your tools and we'll meet you in the garage.
Hello, this is Justin over at GlowShift Gauges. Today I'm going to walk you through the installation process of our white 7-color series gauges, including the Boost EGT and the transmission temperature gauge on our 2006 Dodge Cummins diesel 24 valve.
Click on one of the buttons below to skip to a specific gauge installation. Today we'll be installing our diesel gauge set into a 2006 Dodge Ram 5.9-liter 24-valve Cummins. This gauge set features a 60 PSI Boost Gauge, 1500 EGT gauge, as well as a transmission temperature gauge. As always, if you have any installation questions, our technical support specialists are here to help.
First step of installation, you would want to disconnect both negative terminals from the batteries.
It is imperative that you disconnect the negative side of both batteries before beginning your installation. This ensures the circuit is not complete and no power will be running through your vehicle through the install.
The next step, we're going to be installing the compression fitting for the boost gauge into the boost bolt adapter.
Connect the brass compression fitting from the boost gauge to the boost bolt. Be sure to use Teflon tape on all threads for a proper seal. The boost bolt shown is not included with the 60 PSI boost gauge, but can be purchased at GlowShift.com or by clicking the graphic to the right. Now it's time to install the boost bolt. Locate your intake horn and remove the passenger side bolt. Once your factory bolt is removed, simply screw in the boost bolt with the compression fitting attached. You want to tighten the boost bolt to 120 inch-pounds. Now you can connect the boost hose and the rest of the compression fitting to the boost bolt. Slide the nut and ferrule fitting over one end of the boost hose. Connect it to the boost bolt and securely tighten. Once the boost line is connected, run it to the firewall. Be sure to secure the hose with zip ties and keep it away from any direct heat source or moving parts.
Now once the boost line is all secured and ran to the firewall, you now want to go ahead and take the transmission temperature sensor and thread this directly into the test port extender.
Begin by threading the transmission temperature sensor into the transmission test port extender. Again, be sure to use Teflon tape on all threads for a proper seal. The test port extender shown is not included with the transmission temperature gauge, but can be purchased at GlowShift.com or by clicking the graphic to the right. We are installing this sensor into the transmission test port, which is very shallow. The extender ensures the sensor is at the proper depth and does not get sheared off by the transmission's moving parts. Before installing the transmission temperature sensor, Run the gauge's wire harness through the firewall into the transmission test port. You will need to extend the wires from this gauge by using either the 3-gauge wiring kit, extended wire harness, or by using 16 or 18 gauge automotive grade wire. For this install, we used the 3-gauge wiring kit. Locate the transmission test port on the passenger side of the vehicle. Remove the bolt that is plugging the test port and thread the extender with the sensor attached into the test port and tighten. Once the temperature sensor is installed, connect the green wire from the gauge harness to the white wire on the sensor, and the black wire on the sensor to the black wire on the harness.
Now we are going to go ahead and drill out the exhaust manifold for installation of the EGT probe. Please, when you are drilling, always wear your safety glasses.
Using a center punch, mark the drilling location on the exhaust manifold's turbo flange. To make drilling the manifold easier, you can remove the intake and cover, but this step is optional. Starting with a 1/8 inch drill bit, drill a hole in the exhaust manifold where you marked with the center punch. After your pilot hole is drilled, gradually step up in drill bit size until you reach size R. The reason we recommend installing the EGT probe to the exhaust manifold's turbo flange is that this particular mounting location will give you the most accurate temperature readings. Using other mounting locations can cause the readings to be significantly off. If you do not have a drill and tap set, one can be purchased at GlowShift.com or by clicking the image to the right. Once the hole is drilled, use a vacuum and magnet to remove the metal shavings from the inside of your exhaust manifold. Once the metal shavings are removed, slowly tap the hole to 1/8-27 MPT. After you finish tapping the hole, use the vacuum and magnet again to remove the metal shavings that accumulated while tapping. Now that your exhaust manifold is drilled, tapped, and cleaned out, install the EGT probe adapter into the hole and tighten. Once the adapter is installed, slide the EGT probe into the adapter and tighten. After your EGT probe is installed, run the lead power wires along the firewall and secure them using zip ties, being sure to keep them away from any moving parts or direct heat source. Once you're finished running and securing the lead power wires, pass both the EGT probe wires as well as the boost hose through your firewall and into your truck's cab.
After you have all of the sensors installed and the wiring ran through the firewall, we are now ready to install the 3 gauges into the triple pillar pod.
Slide each gauge into the gauge pod, making sure they are secure. After the gauges are mounted into your pod, you can begin to wire them. Connect the yellow, red, black, and orange wires to GlowShift's 3-gauge wiring kit, which is available for purchase on GlowShift.com or by clicking the graphic to the right. This wiring kit allows you to connect each gauge to a single wire, which in turn is connected to your power and ground, making your install much easier.
Once all the wiring is ran and secured, we are now ready to install the triple pillar pod into the truck.
To install the triple pillar gauge pod, carefully remove both stock pillar bolts from your factory A-pillar trim. The gauge pod you are installing is a complete replacement, so after removing your stock trim, be sure to store it in a safe location. Now that the bolts are removed, carefully remove the weather stripping from around the trim and gently pull until it comes loose. Take your gauge pod with the gauges installed and place it where you just removed your factory trim. Make sure the gauge power wires are free at the bottom of the pod and route the boost hose to your boost gauge's mounting location. Once the boost hose is ran, connect it to the back of your boost gauge using the included compression fittings. As always, be sure to use Teflon tape on all the threads. Once the boost line is connected to the back of the gauge, simply slide it back into the pod. Now that your boost gauge is connected, we can finish installing the gauge pod. Slide the included bolt through the pod and into the threaded hole in your factory A-pillar. Be sure not to over-tighten this bolt. It could cause the gauge pod to shift. Now that your pod is mounted, you can go ahead and reinstall the weather stripping. You can now start connecting each gauge to its sensor, as well as connecting all the gauges to power. First, connect the black and green wires from the transmission temperature sensor to the wire harness on the transmission temperature gauge. Using butt connectors, connect the green and black wires from the sensor to the green and black wires on the gauge harness. To connect the EGT gauge, simply connect the blue and pink wires together using the attached Molex pin connectors. Make sure these wires are firmly connected. If they are loose, it'll cause needle bouncing and inaccurate gauge readings. Once your transmission temperature and EGT gauges are connected, you can connect the power and ground wires. Take the black wire from the 3-gauge wiring kit and connect it to any ground location. Now it's time to route the red, yellow, and orange wires from the 3-gauge wiring kit through the firewall and into your engine bay. After the power wires are ran into the engine bay, reconnect the negative side of each battery so you can find the correct power connection for each wire. We're going to power each wire directly from the fuse block using GlowShift's expandable circuit, which can be purchased at GlowShift.com or by clicking the image to the right. Using expandable circuits will make powering your gauges much easier and eliminates the lengthy process of having to cut and splice wires. Connect the orange, yellow, and red wire each to an expandable circuit. Using a multimeter, identify your 3 power sources located in the fuse block. The orange wire will connect to your headlight switch. The yellow wire will connect to any constant 12-volt source. And the red wire will connect to any switched 12-volt source. Once you have identified the 3 fuse locations where you'll be installing your expandable circuits, remove the fuses from each location and snap them into each expandable circuit. Now take each expandable circuit and snap them into the 3 power locations you identified in the fuse block. Now turn the key to watch your gauges power up. Now that all of your gauges are installed and powered, make sure all of the sensors are properly tightened and there are no leaks.
If you have any questions or comments, or even your own tips for installing, please leave them below. Make sure to also subscribe to catch up on all of our new videos. From everyone at GlowShift, thanks for watching. See you on the road.